Okay, guys, welcome back to Let's Get Freaky. Very excited tonight to welcome our next guest. We have got Betsey Kulakowski with us.
Yay, you nailed it. First try.
Did I say it? Oh,
Yes,
wow.
you did. Perfect.
Oh, get in. Because I was struggling, before we
Uh,
started recording.
Everybody does it. It's perfectly okay.
Oh, yes, because that's so important. That's something
Yeah.
I get very anxious about names and making
Yeah.
sure I say names correctly. Because I've done it before where I've said people's names wrong and it's the
Oh, yeah.
worst, man.
It is.
I called
It
someone a
is.
completely different name once. It was so embarrassing.
I do that all the time. I don't know why that would be embarrassing.
I'm
I blank
terrible.
out. I can be looking at your face. I've known you for 30 years, but for some reason the
Yep.
name is just not coming. It happens.
I've been there before. That's so embarrassing when you're walking down the road and you see someone and you know the face and they say
Mhm.
your name and you're like, oh, you're right,
No.
man. How you doing, man? Can't remember. Oh, it happens
Yeah.
a lot. Oh
Yeah, it
well.
does.
So I'm excited to have you on the show tonight. What part of the US are you in right now?
I'm in Oklahoma, so I'm right in the dead middle of the United States. Not Midwest, not South, not West. We're just kind of, no man's land is what they used to call it. So,
Yeah.
we're just north of Texas, if you know where Texas is.
Yeah, for sure.
We're right above them.
Oh, awesome. You are an author.
Uh-huh.
You've got your own podcast that you do,
Mm-hmm.
which is really cool. A UFB podcast, but I'm going to say
Yeah,
unfreaking believable. Is that?
that's it. It's the
Yeah.
unfreaking believable
I
podcast.
love that. I love that.
Yes.
I've been listening. I was listening today. Super interesting. Obviously, you look into the all the subjects that we like here at Let's Get
Oh
Freaky.
yeah. Yeah. And we don't just do the paranormal, we do a lot of paranormal, but we also do these stories of the miraculous. We do everyday aha moments that people have because we believe that life is made of great stories.
Hmm.
And, it, truth is stranger than fiction. So
Yeah.
we just play on that and there's three of us that do it. My partner's JB Kane, who's out of Florida, and then Jenny Samard LaBranch, who is out of New Hampshire. Have to say it like she does. So we're all across the country, but we've become friends through the writing community. uh, Jenny and I kind of talked about doing a podcast, and then Jen came along, and it melded together. It was just the perfect combo, the three of us. We all play well off each other. We all have our own little niches that we write in. I write paranormal thrillers. Jenny writes fantasy. Jen writes a little paranormal, a little fantasy, a little horror. So, we've got a little bit of a mix in there. And I do a couple other things. I do some thrillers and other stuff that aren't paranormal, but we just really kind of gelled, and we started throwing out the format and what it would look like. And it just everything fell into place, and rather quickly, because we started talking in September and our first episode aired in January.
Oh,
So
wow.
we had plenty of time to kind of really dive into what we wanted our podcast to be. We wanted it to be positive and uplifting and something that anybody could listen to, no matter how old they are. Occasionally we have to bleep somebody, but it happens. It's not a big deal. We get excited.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I really enjoy listening to it. So you've got a new
Thank
listener with
you.
me, that is for sure. It is really cool, feel good, and you look into the cool subjects.
Yeah, and we
But
have some really cool guests. I'm amazed at who
yeah,
we've had so far. Best-selling authors, actors, screenplay writers, paranormal investigators, mediums, psychics. We've had some really interesting guests. I think probably one of our favorites has been Amanda the Bigfoot Lady. She's
oh
actually out
wow.
of Georgia. She works at the Bigfoot Museum in Ellijay, Georgia. And we just happened to be going on a writer's retreat to Blue Ridge, which is just north of Ellijay. And so we were going to go right by the museum, and it just like, okay, we have to go. We have to go. And so we thought, well, let's see if there's somebody there we can reach out to, maybe get a tour, get some inside information, maybe get a back scenes look at things. So we reached out to the owner, and he said, well, let you talk to Amanda. I think you guys would really hit it off. And boy, did we ever. And she was just so gracious. We went to the museum. We got talking about some of the haunted cemeteries in the area. And she goes, you know what? My mom would meet you guys out at one of these cemeteries. I'm like, oh my gosh, now we're going to meet her mom. So
Wow.
we did a couple cemetery tours, and she directed us to a really good place to go eat. Best biscuit I've ever had in my life. And I'm from the South-ish. I've had a few biscuits in my day, but that one was amazing. So we just had a really good time getting to know Amanda, and I think it's safe to say we've made a friend for life there. And that's the beautiful thing about like podcasts is that you become friends with your fellow podcasters and your guests, and you never know who you're going to meet.
Yeah, 100%. It is. It's such a cool community, the podcast world. You meet, as you say, you meet the most amazing people, people that you think you'd probably never be able to. Like I've had guests on the show that I've known for years, and it always surprises me when they agree to come on. I'm like, oh, wow, get a bit starstruck. You meet
big time. When we first started, we all had a big list. You know, who would we invite if we could invite anybody? Who's on our big list? And so far, we've had 3 of our big list.
Wow, that's cool.
In 6 months.
Wow, because you're not been doing it long at all, and that's
not very
really
long
cool.
At all. Yeah, and we do 2 episodes a month. Our episodes air on the 11th and the 27th of each month. There's a numerical reason for that. Anybody who knows anything about numerology will know the importance of 111, 3 ones. Our first episode aired on 111. So
interesting. Yeah. I know that's a special number, but what is that? Why is
it's just an angelic number, and it's a number that symbolizes new beginnings and collaboration. And man, that's what we've got. We've got collaboration. So
that's awesome. I keep seeing the number 33. I keep seeing it all the time.
Yep. That's an angelic number. And anytime you see numbers repeating like that, pay attention. There's something there the universe wants you to see.
Yeah, for sure. Because at first I was a little bit worried about it, because I was coming from a bit of a conspiratorial, because 33 is a bit in the conspiracy world. It's a bit of a dodgy number. And I was thinking, I don't want to be seeing this. And I kept seeing it constantly, and I still do. But now I see it as a positive thing because it's an angel number.
Yeah. And, you know, people think of midnight being the witching hour, but the witching hour is actually 3:33 in the morning. And I have amazingly woken up so many times from the weirdest dreams at 3:33 in the morning.
Really?
And it's like, okay, that was a message.
Yeah. I don't believe in coincidences anymore.
No,
especially since doing this show. There's these numbers, and there's so much to. I used to think, it's just numbers, and people can make numbers from anything, but I don't think that anymore. I really don't.
No.
So, what got you into, obviously, the paranormal writing, these paranormal cool subjects?
Well, I have to say that part of it came from when I was very young. My grandfather was a right-of-way agent for pipeline companies. And so we traveled the country buying right-of-way for the Trans-Alaskan Pipeline. And we ended up in Bellingham, Washington. And I was probably 2 or 3. I mean, I was really young, and we weren't there very long. But that was where I first heard the story of Bigfoot. And I was fascinated, absolutely fascinated with this, big hairy monster that supposedly lived in the woods. And so like the Monsters Inc., that became my monster. I was always fascinated with Bigfoot. Anything I could find to read about it, watch on TV about it, magazines, books, anything I could find at the library, I would read about Bigfoot. And I would watch shows like In Search Of and Ripley's Believe It or Not, all those great shows that we grew up with. So I really kind of got started with Bigfoot. As I got older and started to learn more about things like ghosts and the Loch Ness Monster, I was always drawn to it, and my brother was too. So, we kind of had that one unifying thing that we were interested in. Brothers and sisters don't always get along, but we had our monster stories. The Friday night creature features on TV, we were allowed to stay up and watch after the Tonight Show came off. So, I mean, you got to stay up past 10 o'clock. That was kind of a big deal. So I think I always loved, I'm not a big horror fan, but I like the creature feature movies, Dracula and the Wolfman. And I think the one that probably scared me the most, there was a movie called Gargoyles. And the narrator had this deep voice, and he talked about the monsters coming out from their graves and all this. And I mean, it creeped me out to no end. And so I just, it was one of those things I just kind of fed on it. So when I started, I was always kind of writing in the background. I think I wrote my first book when I was 6, just some little kid's book that I drew with crayons and string binding and made it for Christmas presents. But the first poem I wrote in school, I remember to this day, was about the Loch Ness Monster.
Oh, wow.
And so, I've always been interested in it. So I figure, my first poem is going to be paranormal, then my first book probably should be too. So I had written what would become the Veritas Codex series, the first book, for practice. I didn't think anybody would ever read it. I was used to being called the weird kid because I was into the creepy stuff. And I didn't want to be the weird writer. I thought, well, I'm just going to write this for practice. Nobody's ever going to read it. I can be as outlandish as I want to be. I don't have to hold any bar. I could throw it all in. Whatever I want it to be, it can be. So I wrote this one, and it's about a paranormal television crew that is on the hunt for the answers to the world's greatest mysteries. If you watch any of those shows, you probably know, kind of what I'm going at. And they were in the Pacific Northwest on the hunt for Bigfoot. And in the middle of the investigation, their lead investigator, who's a female, disappears, and she's gone for 10 days. And when she comes back, she has no memory of where she's been, what's happened to her, but all the evidence suggests that she was abducted by Bigfoot.
Oh, wow.
So was it aliens? Was it Bigfoot? Well, pity she can't remember. So then the real mystery comes into it, and it's what happened to Lauren. And so they have to find out what happened. And, mayhem and mystery ensue.
Yeah.
And that was where I started. So I wrote that for practice, and it probably took me a good year to really flesh it out. I had a writers group that I would take it to, and I would read them a chapter, and they'd go, oh, this is really good, but you need to have more tension, or you need to watch your point of view. They kind of coached me the writing part, because I was still considering myself a novice writer. I really didn't know what I was doing. Again, I was just doing it for practice. And when I finished that book, I thought, okay, well, that was fun. And I, put the flash drive in a file somewhere in a folder, or, in a drawer, and forgot about it. And I thought, okay, I'm going to write another one. I'm just going to find out, because I feel like there's more to the story. Let's do another episode. And I did another one that I liked, and it went really well. And then I did another one and another one. And so I had 4 books, basically in the can.
Wow.
And I still had no path to publication, because I wasn't ever going to show this to anybody. So I started going to writers' conferences. Really lucky here in Oklahoma City that we have a really rich writing culture here. A couple of best-selling authors do a conference here called WriterCon. And so I started going to that. It was actually the Rose State College Writers Conference, and that's where I was working on my degree. And so I started going to that in 2016, and I think that's about the year I tracked it back to. And in the 2019 conference, I'm taking notes in one of the sessions. I don't even remember what they were talking about, but I'd always spoken at safety conferences, and I love doing public speaking, and I like to teach. And I thought, I'm going to do something in the next year that's going to get me invited to be a speaker here. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that looks like, but I put it in my notes. I wrote it down and forgot about it until 6 months later, when I went back through. I guess it probably wasn't that long. It's maybe a couple of weeks later. Went back through my notes and saw it. And I came home from that conference with a flyer for a writing cruise. And I told my husband, I said, you know what? This is a week-long intensive writing workshop. It's a small group with these really great instructors, a 30-sometimes best-selling author who has a publishing company is going to be there. There's going to be agents there. There's going to be all these other writers who are probably maybe farther along than me, but I'm never going to get anywhere if I just sit still. I think we need to go. And my husband's like, why are you still talking? Let's go.
Yes.
So he didn't even blink. He said, just sign up. So we signed up for it. And in February of 2020, we went on this writing cruise to, we went to Costa Rica, we went to Mexico, 3 different cruises, went to Chichen Itza, which is where my second book is set. So it was just meant to be.
Wow.
But we workshopped, and I sent that book in, the one that scared me the most, that nobody was ever going to read. We workshopped it. I had already had the character so well developed in my head that when they said, well, what's your motivation? I had that answer ready. Or what happens here? Well, I had that answer ready. Well, what if this happened? Okay, well, I could make that work, but here's why it didn't, here's why I didn't do it. And I had all these things worked out, and we workshopped the book, and I had to practice my pitch to the agents in front of a live audience, which is nerve-wracking. You get 3 minutes in the hot seat.
Yeah.
And there's dolphins out the window. and I'm kind of distracted because, dolphins. But I came home from the cruise just as the pandemic hit. Our cruise ship landed in Galveston the same day they quarantined the cruise ship in New Jersey. And I thought, well, that's it. We're done. Nobody's publishing any books in this, certainly not new writers. But a couple weeks later, I got a call from the publisher and he said, you know what? I like your stories better than Pixies and Fairies. I want the whole series.
Wow.
And he'd probably heard me talk about the second book more than he heard the first one, because we walked to Chichen Itza together and we were walking around and I'm talking about, I did this and here's the history and there's 3 pyramids in there. It's not just 2, I probably talked his ear off, but I got published in September of 2020. My first book came out. We hit the bestseller list with the day we opened, in 3 different categories. Now, granted, they were a bit obscure, but they were great categories for my book. And I'm still in the top 25 to 30 most of the time for those 3 categories. And I've gone back and hit number 1 twice since then in those 3 categories. I was number 1 on Amazon's movers and shakers list in December, following the September release.
Wow.
And it's just, I haven't slowed down any. The second book came out probably 8 or 9 months later. And in that one, it's 2012 and they're studying the Mayan apocalypse, and the network decides at the last minute they just have to have a show on the Mayan apocalypse. Well, Lauren can't travel, so she sends her partner, her co-host, and the team to go down, and they get involved in an international antiquities deal gone bad. Somebody's stealing antiquities from Chichen Itza. And so they get involved in the investigation, trying to catch a killer. And again, mayhem and mystery ensue. In the third book was funny because we were at the writing cruise, and one of the coaches, who's a stand-up comedian, goes, she needs an annoying sister. She needs an annoying sister who can really be the fly in her ointment. I'm like, well, she doesn't have any sisters. She's got 6 brothers. He goes, pick one. So book 3 is basically, she has to face this annoying brother that she's never been able to get along with. And he is a satellite engineer for NASA. And he's always said that he's going to find aliens before she does. And he really likes to rub her nose in that. And he starts to pick up alien signals from outer space. And one of his coworkers gets murdered trying to keep this a secret. So he has to come to her and she has to help him. And they're after him too. So we get to see a little bit of aliens. So we get our, time travel with the Mayan apocalypse. In book 4, which is the Monk's Grimoire, I actually wrote that one in 24 days.
Wow.
I was inspired. It was one of those cold, rainy weekends. I sat on the back porch with a cup of coffee, my laptop, my iPad, my phone, so I could search up things while I was writing and didn't have to stop. And I wrote the first 25,000 words in a 3-day weekend.
Wow.
So that's about a third of the book. So it's all about a hunt for missing pages from the Devil's Codex, which is a real book. If you've heard anything about it, it's pretty creepy. Mm-hmm. There's a real legend behind it that I kind of play off of. I took some liberties with it, but had a lot of fun playing with the missing pages, because if Lauren doesn't get her hands on those pages before the devil does, there's going to be hell to pay.
Oh, wow.
So she's got to find these missing pages.
Can you tell us a little bit about what that book is?
Yeah, that's the Monk's Grimoire. The Devil's Codex is a real book. It's like the world's largest antique book. It's like 6 feet this way and 4 feet this way, and it's pretty thick. It's 120 some pounds. It's a huge book. And it was the legend behind it is that it was written by a monk who had violated his monastic vows and was sentenced to be walled up for life, which is basically you get walled in until you die. And he promised to write this book in one night to magnify this monastery that he was in. And when he realized he couldn't do it, he sold his soul to the devil for the devil to help him finish it. And if you look at the text, it is consistent through every page. No typos, no errors, no ink blots. I mean, it's almost pristine, and the font is exactly the same, which would be almost impossible even for me to recreate. If I was writing something for over 20 years, my handwriting changes from day to day, hour to hour, minute to minute. I have my own font, but I don't use it when I'm in a hurry. And you can imagine he only had one night to get this done before he got walled up. But the book got thrown out a window to save it from a fire, and it landed on somebody and nearly killed them. I mean, there's just this whole lore behind it. And the book now is in, I believe, the Swedish library, in a airtight room so it doesn't rot. And one of the pages at the very back is an illustration of a horrifying looking devil creature that is supposed to be an homage to the devil who helped him write this book. So if you ever get a chance, Google the Devil's Codex and look that one up, because that is a very interesting story that most people don't know anything about.
Yeah. Wow. That's interesting.
Yeah. So book 5 is The Lost Templar. You can kind of tell what that might be about. Missing treasures from the Templars. And the 6th book that came out last year is The Pirate's Curse. And that one is a lot of fun. There's some action, adventure, pirates, the Bermuda Triangle, Atlantis, time travel. I threw everything in on that one because I wanted that one to be a lot of fun. And my high school mascot was the pirate. So, one's a pirate, always a pirate.
Yes.
That's kind of an homage to my high school. But they get lost in the Bermuda Triangle and have to find their way out on this cursed pirate ship, reliving the same day, kind of over and over.
Oh, wow.
Pretty interesting.
Super interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Fun stuff.
You hit on all the coolest subjects.
I try to. And then I have a big announcement. Can I share this with your listeners?
Yeah, for sure. Let's go.
All right. So August 6th, book 7 will be released. And that is going to be The King's Ransom. And this one involves, there's a great peace accord that has been brokered throughout several of these books. And the peace accord is become very tentative. And it's on the verge of collapsing because there are a couple of warlords who are fighting for control of the Middle East. And there is a legendary weapon that is supposedly missing somewhere in Babylon, which would be Iraq today. And they want this weapon. And they get a hold of Rowan, who is Lauren's partner, who is an archaeologist. And they want his help to find this weapon. And they'll use any means to make him help them find it. And they're not very nice about it. So we have to find this ancient weapon.
Interesting.
Yes. And very much based on history. I'm a historian, family genealogist. I try to weave all of that into the books. I learn as much writing any of these books as I do. And I try to educate as I go, because again, I'm a teacher. I've been teaching for years. I teach occupational safety. So this is a little bit different kind of teaching, but I try to be as accurate as I possibly can. I do tend to weave a little myth in there. I like to blur lines big time. So I think everybody will be really excited to read The King's Ransom.
Yeah, that sounds super
and there will be more to come, I can promise you, because I've already written book 11.
11?
Yes, and I'm half done through book 12. I'm just kind of waiting to see how things play out.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's what I love your journey, that you've gone from writing it down on that piece of paper and now you're here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like it's meant to be. It's like
I think so.
It's meant to be.
My publisher has a motto. He says, you cannot fail if you refuse to quit. And I just never quit. I just keep writing. I have good days and bad days. And if they end with a little bit of writing, whether I'm doing a little editing or if I'm just sitting at my computer thinking about it, or I get 3 words down, that's a successful writing day. If I can sit and write, 25,000 words over a 3-day weekend, bonus.
Yeah. Do you ever get like when you're writing and when you had that weekend when you've done so much, do you get into like sort of like not like a meditation, but are you sort of like, I don't really,
it's very zen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And you're in that world.
You know when the magic is working. I have days where I'll sit and I'm writing, I'm thinking, yeah, this is garbage, but I keep writing because I can edit it. I can edit it if it's bad. I can't edit a blank page. But there's days where you're just writing and you just know this is the scene. This is the chapter that's going to make or break this series. not just this book, but this series, because I'm already setting up for what's going to happen in the end. And I have been for a while. You know, it feels good. You just know it.
Yeah.
So yeah, for sure.
Yeah. You're doing a great job. If you've already got 11, 7 coming and 11 in the bag already, I mean, that's impressive.
Yeah.
You said you sort of know where it's going to end. I mean, how far is it going to go?
Well, I the way I see it is I have 12 in this first evolution. After that, I could go left, I could go right, I could go straight. I have so many different characters from this series that I could pull out and give them their own series.
Yeah.
I've got Lauren as the main character in this first innovation. Rowan kind of has the second half of the series. He kind of takes the lead in book 7. And that's not always going to be the case, but he's going to play a very important role in book 7. He's the love interest. He's the male protagonist, the male hero. But she doesn't need always to be rescued. Sometimes she has to do the rescuing. So it gives an interesting juxtapose. They have a great chemistry and a great balance between the two of them because they complete each other.
Yeah.
And, finding somebody like that, everybody needs a book boyfriend. So Rowan is my book boyfriend because he's a lot of it is he's very reminiscent of my husband because my husband very much completes me. He's who allows me to do what I do, and he facilitates it. And he's perfectly content to sit downstairs and watch TV while I'm up here writing. And sometimes I take my laptop and I go sit with him. I'm not paying any attention to what's on the TV. I wish I could sit and watch TV, but I honestly would rather write.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Do you think a part of the main character is you?
To a certain degree, yes. She would be me on crack. she has the things I aspire to. I mean, she's smart. She's got a PhD in biological anthropology. I wish I had a PhD. I finished my associate's degree in 2018 at the ripe old age of, I won't say, but my son graduated high school a week later. So I got him into college after I finished my degree. So
that's awesome.
Made me happy. But she's everything I would aspire to be, but she has her flaws as well. She is stubborn to a fault. She doesn't like to be told she's wrong. She doesn't like people interfering with her work. So there are some things that get her into trouble because she's passionate about what she does, and she doesn't like being made fun of, and she doesn't want to be mocked. So she's going to do the scientific, logical thing 9 times out of 10. We get into some of the later series, episode, books, whatever you want to call them. Sometimes she lets her guard down and she gets it caught up in the excitement because she wants to believe. She's very much like Mulder. She wants very much to believe, but she's also very much like Scully that she has to have the evidence. And in book 1, somebody's making fun of her for the whole Bigfoot thing. And she's like, you know what? Absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. And, just because you haven't found him doesn't mean he's not out there. Yeah. So, that's Lauren to a T. That's
what I tell my friends all the time as well, that disbelieve.
Yeah. But she's also the first one to say, when something odd happens, you have to look for the normal before you look for the paranormal.
Yeah. Which sometimes I jump to the paranormal first, which I
want to. I very much want to.
Do you think this could possibly be? I mean, you've done a lot in quite a short space, really. If you started this in, do you say 2019?
I think I originally wrote the first book in 2009, but I didn't publish it until 2020.
Yeah. So from publishing it to now, that's quite you've done a heck of a lot. Do you think there could possibly be a film or a TV series?
I see it in my head like that. I think it'd make a great television show because I think every book could be a season, kind of like Outlander. If anybody's ever watched Outlander, it started out as a book series. Her books are massively thick compared to mine. So there's a lot of things that get cut out. I have a friend who's a screenplay writer who's been encouraging me to put the first book into a screenplay, kind of coaching me a little bit. And he's read the first book. So he's like, okay, this will lend itself well to the screen, but she's all in her head. So you're gonna have to find ways to get out of her head and show it on the screen. It's like, okay. So I've been playing with that. Before I got it published, I actually pitched it to an acquiring agent from NBC Universal. And she said, I pitched the book to her and she goes, well, it sounds great, but is it published? And I said, not yet. She goes, well, get it published and then we'll talk. So I haven't had a chance to circle back with her, but I'm going back to WriterCon this year and there's going to be some TV agents present. So I have another chance to pitch it. Yeah. So I will be pitching that.
Awesome. Yeah. It sounds to me like this is going to be a big hit book and on the screen as well.
That would be my hope. I got to sell more books though. That's the thing. They only look at you if you are a huge bestseller, a New York Times list. And I'm not there yet, but I will not quit.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I'm going to be getting the books. That is for sure.
Yep. So the nice thing is if anybody likes it on audiobook, the first 6 books can be bought in a box set. Or not an audiobook, in an ebook.
Yeah.
So you can get the first 6 books on Audible, not Audible. What is it called? Kindle. I can't get my words right tonight. Get it on Kindle for $9.99 for all 6 books.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
That's a great deal.
Yeah. One book alone is $12.99. So
yeah,
it's a good deal.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'll share any links. Will be in the show description.
Sure.
People listening, go there right now. Get the books because it sounds very, very interesting to me. All the subjects that we like here at Let's Get Freaky. That's
exactly. Sure. I try to cover all of them. And if I haven't covered them, that doesn't mean I won't.
They could be coming. Yeah.
Yeah. Book 8, we're going to get into little ghost hunting and demons in book 8. And it's not going to stop.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Now you said Bigfoot was like the start for you and very much for me as well. I love Sasquatch, Bigfoot. Absolutely fascinates me.
Yeah.
I haven't had any, personally, I haven't seen anything myself yet. That's something I'd like to one day. That's the dream. Have you had any experiences with Bigfoot?
I've had some close calls.
Really?
Yes. So a couple of years ago, we were up in the Pacific Northwest. We got up to Mount St. Helens, which is where the first book is set. I just wanted to see how I did. There's a few things I might change now after I've gone and seen it myself. But for the most part, I felt like I did a pretty decent job. I didn't take into account all the roads up there. They do a lot of hiking. It's okay. And we do a lot of hiking, which is why I put that in there because I love to go and hike. I like to be out in the woods. I love nature. My husband does too. And we were hiking up on Mount St. Helens on one of the trails. And of course, I'm looking around at the ground, watching for footprints. And my husband's looking around at the trees and the birds and the clouds and the volcano and all that kind of stuff. And I'm watching the ground and I don't see anything. But the very next day, there was an article in the newspaper that somebody had found a footprint on the trail that we were hiking on. And they had pictures of it. And we missed it by literally hours, like by that much. So that's close call number 1. We have an area here in Oklahoma where there's Bigfoot activity. And they have a Bigfoot festival in Honubby, which is a very small rural town in southeastern Oklahoma. It's in the mountains. There's swamps. I mean, it's perfect habitat. If you wanted to be a Bigfoot and you wanted to live in Oklahoma, you'd love it here. Lots of game, lots of cover. But I had never gotten to go to Honubby. And I had a friend who's an author who writes similar stuff to what I write. And he said, well, come down. I'm doing a book signing. You can go down to Honubby, whatever you want to do. So I went down and I got a chance to drive through Honubby. And there's a big sign that says, the Bigfoot Highway. I told my husband, I said, I want to stop and get my picture. And it's a 2-lane road. There's no traffic. It was perfectly safe to pull over and go get this picture. So while we're standing there, I'm like, what is that smell? I mean, oh my God, it stinks around here. And, I've been a safety inspector for years. I know what paper mills smell like. I've been to rendering plants, butchering facilities, slaughterhouses. I've been to some nasty, nasty places, but this stinks like nothing I have ever smelled. And my husband's like, I don't know what that is. I said, it smells like a rendering plant is what it smells like. So, we got our picture and got back in the car and went on our merry way. And I messaged my friend while we were on our way home because my husband was driving. And I said, do you guys have a rendering plant down in Honubby? And he goes, no. I said, paper mill? He goes, no. I knew he didn't have paper mill because I know where it is. It's farther away. And I said, well, let me tell you what happened. And so I told him about the smell. And he goes, "Oh, that was the booger."
Oh,
He said, "That's what they smell like." So I know what they smell like, and you
yeah,
don't want to, trust me. They
yeah. And
stink.
I've heard
So if
so
he's
many
right,
people say that.
yeah. Well, that was number two. And then when we were in Georgia, my riding partner and I decided we were going to take a morning hike, and it was pretty chilly that morning, and they'd had storms move through the weekend before we got there. And there's a hiking trail that goes, it's like a 200-mile hiking trail. We were going to do maybe a mile of it. But they had trees that had fallen down over the pathway. So there was a guy out there with chainsaw, and he'd gotten his chainsaw stuck in one of the trees. He did plan his cut right. So he'd gone to get the other chainsaw, and he was just getting back over there, and he helped us get over the log and everything. And we had a passing conversation. Have a great hike. You go see this. You don't want to miss this. There's if you get to here, you've gone too far. Turn around and go the other way. Just a nice conversation in passing. And so we were going on, and it took him a while before he got that second chainsaw to fire up. And when he did, the howl that came out of the woods literally peeled the skin off the back of my neck. It was so creepy. And my riding partner and I just kind of stopped and looked at each other, and she goes, "I don't think he likes the chainsaw." I'm like, "You think?" And they had Bigfoot sightings in that area within the week before we had gotten there, and we did not know that.
Oh, wow.
So those are my 3 close calls with Bigfoot.
That sound, the howl that you heard, was that like anything you'd heard before?
It's like a woman screaming bloody murder. I had heard recordings of it at the Bigfoot Museum the day before.
Interesting.
And it was every bit what you hear in those recordings.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear that.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously I've heard Bigfoot sounds.
Yeah. Yeah. It's nothing until you've been there.
Yeah.
And it's out there, and you're out there, and all you have is like a bottle of water and a walking stick.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not going to do a lot.
Did I not bring the bear mace? Where is it? Is that TSA compliant?
So did you feel, because a lot of people say when they hear the Bigfoot and a howl, that they can actually feel that going through them, like there's...
Yeah.
Is that how it felt?
It was close enough that he was not happy about that chainsaw. He wasn't unhappy with us, but it did not like that chainsaw. That noise was not what it wanted to hear at 8:30 in the morning on a chilly morning. He wanted to go back to bed and have some more coffee or something.
Yeah.
So it was very much, I wouldn't say I was afraid, but I was a whole lot more respectful of my condition. I'm not going to fight him. I'm not going to run, but I'm not going to fight him.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it was very interesting.
That's cool. That's cool. Cool experience to be that close to something that you've been fascinated with all your life as well. Like,
yeah,
super interesting. What do you think? It's a difficult question because no one really knows, but what do you think a Bigfoot is?
Well, I truly believe that it's just an unidentified species of great ape. We did not believe in gorillas until the modern era. I mean, they just were thought to be a myth until they were proven otherwise. So I have to believe that this world is big enough that there's room for creatures that we just don't know. We don't see them. They're really good at hiding. We have cave systems all over southern Oklahoma, and I have a feeling the caves play a lot in their habitat, their protection, where they're going to go to stay hidden. I'm not going to go creeping around in caves in southeastern Oklahoma, much less Mount St. Helens, because their caves are even bigger.
Yeah.
And they're longer, and you can get lost. And I'm terrified of tight spaces, which Lauren is too. Surprise, surprise.
Same. I don't like when I watch these videos of guys crawling through little caves with a little flashlight. It gives me anxiety just watching videos like that. I don't know how people do it.
I don't know why.
Oh,
why would you want to?
That's not fun.
They've obviously never been trapped. I've been trapped in a confined space before, and I didn't like it.
Yeah. No, that's not nice. Oh, and when they're going through and they've got like the water and they're just holding their mouth just out of the water and there's rock there, and I'm like, wait, man, that's I
I'm
mean,
cringing just thinking about it.
each their own, I guess, but
Yeah, but not for me. Not
not
for
for
me. I
me
won't
either.
yuck your yum, but if you love it, go right ahead. I'll call 911 when you get stuck
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I'm not coming in after you.
Send help.
Yep, will do.
Why do you think we haven't caught up with Bigfoot yet? I know that's another difficult
Yeah.
question.
It is very difficult, and honestly, knowing people like I do, I don't want to hang out with them.
Mhm.
A person
Yeah.
is one thing, but people are another.
Mhm.
We have taken over habitat. We have decimated food sources. I think humans are probably just better left alone, and I think they're wise enough to recognize that.
Mhm.
I don't think it's that they're afraid, because I think if they really wanted to do us any harm, they could. But we've got numbers where they just have strength, and I truly believe they're endangered. I can't imagine that there'd be a very big population. There'd have to be enough to at least maintain, genetic diversity. But again, I start sounding like Lauren when I start talking about why we haven't found them yet. I think they're just very protective. They're very elusive, and for good reason.
Yeah. Because I mean, you think of how America has changed in quite a short
Mhm.
space of time, massively, really.
Mhm.
And that they would be seeing that change.
Yeah, very much so.
I'd love to see a Bigfoot. That is. What do you think of the Patterson Gimlin film?
I have watched, I think that's probably one of the videos that I have watched so many times in my life. And I've heard all the different analysis, and I've heard people say, oh, it's just a guy in a suit. But I see all the details. They talk about the rippling of the muscles and the way the hair moves. I think that's really hard to replicate.
Yeah,
If they could make a great Bigfoot costume back then, why didn't they? Because you can tell
exactly.
when it's somebody in a costume. You can
Yeah.
tell.
Oh, yeah, for
Um,
sure.
if that was a great costume, then kudos to them, because they got me, because I
Mhm.
love that video, and I think that's one of the best pieces of evidence we have to date.
Same. Yeah, I do as well.
Mhm.
I'm sure it was someone that worked on the Star Wars films.
I don't even think Star Wars did that good.
No, they didn't. And I'm
uh,
pretty sure the guy, one of the main
uh-huh.
makeup guys said we couldn't do that. Like,
Yeah.
there's no way. They might be able to now, but back
Mhm.
then they couldn't
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
So
Maybe CGI could do it, but
yeah, yeah, I don't think they could make a suit that good.
no, not back
Yeah,
then.
that's enough for me.
Hmm. Agreed.
So I know it's not just Bigfoot and
Right.
paranormal. Have you had paranormal experiences yourself?
I have. I have done some ghost hunting. I've been, again, being a historian and a genealogist, I like to get in old buildings. I like to go to old cemeteries and walk around and, commune with the ancestors. We did an investigation out at Old Fort Reno, which is an Indian fort here in Oklahoma. Here before statehood, they had a German POW camp there during World War II. And there's a lot of history there, and there's a lot of um, unexplained things that are happening out there. So they were doing they had an open public event, and they do it almost every month, where they have some of the paranormal investigators come out, and they kind of take you around, give you the historical tour, and they take out all the gadgets and gizmos, and the SLRs and the REM pods and all that kind of fun stuff. I take a camera and a electric voltage detector because I'm a safety professional. Those are the tools of my trade. I take those out when I go. And we were out at Fort Reno, and we'd been probably 6 or 7 times at this point. And I have a standard practice when I get there. I get there before it gets dark. I go around to all the buildings and I take pictures in the windows, so I have a baseline. Again, that's the scientist in me coming out. So I'm going to go around and have my baseline and see what it looks like. Make sure the windows are clean, because these are old, blown glass windows. They ripple, and they have imperfections in them. And so I want to identify that ahead of time. And so I had done that. And after it got dark, we go around to the old Victorian, which was one of the officers' homes. And I had taken pictures on the south side windows. The very first window, I very clearly got an image of a face. And I got 3 or 4 pictures in sequential order of this face. And you can almost make out the beard line around his face, around his eyes, the eye sockets, the mouth, and a hand up by the window. And I wasn't the only one who saw it. It wasn't just on the camera. They could see it with their own eyeballs.
Wow.
And I turned around to say something to my mom, and when I turned back, it was gone. But I got some really good pictures. Well, relatively good pictures of it. Still, you know, it's like Bigfoot. They're all blurry.
Yeah, I think they've just got
I'm
some
not a
power.
professional photographer, but I kind of sat on that picture for a while because I really couldn't explain it. I wanted to think it was something, but I couldn't explain it. So, you know, I really didn't do anything with it. And I was a big fan of Ghost Adventures when it came out on the Travel Channel. So they had an open call for fans to send in any paranormal pictures that they had. And I sent that one in. And within a few days, I had an email from the Travel Channel wanting me to sign a release so that they could use that picture. And it was actually used in one of the fan episodes. So that's my
cool.
brush with fame. I never saw the episode though. I keep thinking I need to go back and find it, but this would have been season 5, 4, somewhere early. And it's been on forever. So that's my brush with fame. And I've had other experiences, most of them at Fort Reno, surprisingly. I've had a hand run up my leg. You know, I had jeans on and like a small child running their hand up your leg to like get your attention.
Yeah.
Like up under my pant leg, you know, playing with my sock.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm thinking it's a spider, you know, I'm slapping at it and it was like, that is not a spider.
Wow.
We'd put balls and toys down and let them roll the ball back and forth and the ball would start doing things on its own.
Yeah.
You see shadowy figures walking across the parade grounds, a soldier dragging his weapon. I've heard of that one. I never saw it myself. But I've had the goosebumps like I had seen it when they get talking about it. So just lots of odd experiences, you know, things that happen in the graveyard. Sometimes those need to stay in the graveyard. You have to be really careful not to bring any of that home with you. But I've had some very interesting experience. I have a thing about staying in haunted hotels. We have one here in Oklahoma City called the Skirvin Inn that the NBA basketball players will not stay in.
Really?
Because there are some things that happen in there. And when I was inspecting it, when they were doing renovations on it, gosh, 97, 98, they were doing a big renovation on it. And I got talking to some of the construction crews and they're like, we've had power tools come on all by themselves. And when we start trying to figure out what's going on, they're not plugged in.
Wow. How can you explain that?
I can't. I'm a safety professional. I cannot explain that.
Yeah, that's wild.
Unless there is some kind of an energy leak somewhere and it's being carried in the air. If there's enough dust, I suppose that could happen. It's not likely, but you know, it's kind of a stretch. It's like, okay, let's go back to the normal because that would be the para.
Yeah.
So I'm going back. Okay, normal. What would normally cause something like that to happen? And I cannot explain it.
Yeah. That's what, and the basketball players won't stay there.
Yeah, they won't. It scared them to death. They will not go back.
Man. I mean, I've stayed in, I'd say, a few haunted places, hotels, and there is something. You know, it's scary, but there's something cool about it, and you get that vibe.
The one I have yet to conquer. Yeah, the one I have yet to conquer is I have never been able to get myself to go inside the Stanley Hotel. I have sat in the parking lot. I have stood outside looking at that building and I cannot bring myself to go in it.
Really? Well, is that just a vibe or?
Yeah, I don't know why. I want to go in. I want to see it. But I just look at it and I'm shaking now. I break out in a cold sweat and I just can't go in.
Interesting. I do think it's good to listen to your gut though and stuff like that.
I do too.
If something's telling you not to do it, I think that's a good listen to that, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe in listening to your third sense, your sixth sense, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
I consider myself rather storm sensitive, and it's a handy thing to have in Oklahoma because we have weather like you would not believe. And I have had several very interesting, very strange dreams about tornadoes, and within a week had almost the exact thing happen.
Oh, wow.
With the storm. We had the May 3rd tornado back in 1999. I dreamt everything that happened to me that day and the tornado and everything about it. I had all the details of it. And it was one of those, I was telling my mom about it. We had a hockey game that night. I'm a big avid hockey fan. I played for 10 years and we had a semi-pro team here for a long time. And so we had a hockey game that night. It was a playoff game. And I was telling my mom on the way to the game, everything that happened in this dream. And she goes, now, you know, we're supposed to have bad weather tonight. I'm like, yeah, all of our friends that are storm chasers are out chasing. And she said, you quit creeping me out like this because your grandma used to do this to me all the time. So apparently it runs in my family. So I literally nailed that one dead on. Like it happened within 24 hours, exactly the way I had dreamt it.
Oh, wow.
And I'd had other dreams that, maybe 2 or 3 days later, something similar would happen. But I've had that happen to me more times than not, to the point that my friends who have emergency management backgrounds are like, how's the weather going to be this week?
Wow.
Have any tornado dreams this week?
Yeah.
So yeah, it kind of creeps me out, but if I can help anybody, I'm not as accurate as the National Weather Service. I don't try to say that I can predict storms, but when those kinds of things happen, I start paying attention to it.
Yeah, for sure. When you have one of those dreams, is it like, does it feel real? Does it feel like
Yes,
it's one of those vivid dreams?
Yes. And I wake up with the most bizarre details in my head, and they may not be things that could actually happen. Like the May 3rd dream, I dreamt that I was at the hockey game and my Canadian friends are on the ice, and one of them skates over to me and there's no glass. And I'm like, I'm not going to sit there if there's no glass because I don't want to get hit with a puck. But in my dream, he said, there's a big giant tornado coming and I don't know what to do. And I'm like, don't worry, we'll go downstairs, we'll hang out. When the storm blows over, we'll come back up, play some hockey. It'll be fine. I'm trying to stay calm for them because they're not from around here. They don't know. And literally that night, the PA announcer comes out and says, folks, we got some bad weather moving in. We're going to take the party downstairs till the storm passes. Then we'll come up and play some hockey.
Wow.
And he turns and looks at me from across the ice like, what do I do? And I'm like, I'll meet you downstairs.
Wow.
So
see, that's wild.
Yeah. That accurate.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot more to dreams, man. There is. Yeah. I used to think dreams are just dreams. You can make these connections, but when you have something like that is that accurate, and when you're having the dream, it feels real. How can you explain that? That's wild.
I can't explain it.
When you say go downstairs, is that like
parking garage
at
the arena? Yeah, we had a downstairs parking garage at the arena. It was the closest thing we had to get underground.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm just going on the film Twister when
that's it.
They've got like the underground things that they jump in.
It's surprising, Oklahoma, we have a very high water table, so we don't have basements as often as some other places. We've had issues with tornado shelters that were put in underground actually floating up because the water table is so high.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, when we talk about getting underground, it's usually something that's like a parking garage, or some buildings do have basements, or they have some kind of a tunnel or crawl space. My house, our best tornado shelters are downstairs bathroom. There's barely enough room for the two of us and the dog. So you make do with what you have, as many interior walls between you and the outside as you can possibly put between you. We do have a mirror in there to contend with, so we have to protect ourselves from that. But fortunately, we've never had to go into that. Every time I've ever had to take shelter, it either hasn't really been coming our direction, or science is getting good enough we can kind of watch it and predict it. Of course, I have a degree in emergency management, so I live and breathe this stuff. But my work has a safe room that's built above ground, that's concrete reinforced, and we're starting to see more and more of those in new construction. So people are being smart and planning ahead, and we call that prevention through design.
Yeah, man, that's one of the things that here in the UK we do get bad weather, obviously, and strong winds, but that's something we don't really have to worry about.
Yeah. Let's see. So far, we've had earthquakes, we've had tornadoes, more than I can count. We had an inland hurricane. It was the tail end of Hurricane Aaron that flooded. We had one city that was literally flooded probably 10 feet. The whole town was flooded 10 feet deep.
Wow.
I mean, we can get a lot of rain in a very short period of time. We get ice storms. We've had power go out for 16 days in the middle of winter. I think that's the longest one we've seen. We've had snow. We don't get a lot of snow. The nice thing about snow here is if we do get snow, it's usually gone in a couple of days and we're out playing golf.
Yeah.
within a day or two. It's 22 degrees today. It'll be 72 degrees tomorrow.
Yeah.
We had 100-degree temperature shift one day. It went from minus something to almost like 75 or 80. So it was a
Wow.
100-degree temperature shift.
I'm still thinking of the 16-day no power, no
Yeah,
internet for
16 days with
16
no
days.
power. Fireplace was the best heat we had.
Oh man, that's why books are important.
Exactly. As long as the laptop stayed charged, I did okay. But once the batteries ran out on the laptop, I was like, what do I do now? Oh, pen and paper. Oh, I'm gonna get a cramp.
Old school.
Yeah, big time.
Can I go back to when you caught the image, the ghost?
Yeah.
So you took the picture, you caught it on camera. Did you also see it with your naked eye? You could see it.
I did.
Wow, that's cool.
And I'm like, he doesn't like us out here.
You've got that.
He's like, what are you guys doing out here? You know, that old man, get off my yard.
Wow.
He did not like us out there.
Would you say it was like a full-bodied apparition?
All I saw was the face and the hand. So I didn't see anything else. So partial body apparition would probably be the best I could quantify that.
Yeah. That's cool though.
Yeah.
Scary, but cool.
Yeah. Yeah. If anybody wants to see it, it's on my Instagram page. You'll have to scroll back through the history quite a ways, but it's out there.
Yeah. Awesome. Again, I'll share that. That'll be in the show description so people can find you easily. Man, have you had any other experiences where you've seen ghosts?
Those are probably the biggest ones I can think of.
UFOs.
I haven't got to come to the Loch Ness yet, so that's on my bucket list.
Yeah.
Nessie and I, we go way back, 7 years old.
Yeah.
I can't say that I've seen a UFO, but I've had some things I can't explain. I haven't been able to debunk them. I didn't get video or anything like that. Just, strange lights in the sky. We get that sometimes. Most people don't know that Oklahoma was one of the emergency landing sites for the space shuttle. And it's very rural and it's very isolated out in this area. It's far southwestern Oklahoma, in a place called Burns Flats. And it's an old military airstrip. And I would not be surprised if there was some kind of covert mumbo jumbo going on out there. I'm just guessing. I don't know. But, it would be ideal if you wanted to write a scene in a book for that.
Yeah. So what do you think this is a difficult question, but I always find it interesting what their thoughts and opinions overall are on the paranormal. What do you think is going on? What do you think ghosts are? I know it's difficult.
Yeah. I think there is an energy to the universe that we have yet to identify. And I think time travel and the afterlife and, I think there's different phases and maybe we're not in the same phase as that existence, that plane of existence. And I think, maybe when we die, we cross that plane. And whether we get all the way across or we just get into that quasi zone, the neutral zone, if you will, I don't know. I just have to believe that there's more than what we can see. And I think that's true for pretty much everything. I think alien life, I believe that we are not the first inhabitants of the planet Earth. I believe, from a scientific standpoint, generations of civilizations have been built on top of one another for millennia. And I think if we just could dig down far enough and, there hasn't been something to cause destruction to that evidence, we would find it. We're still finding stuff in the archaeological record that we did not know was there. We find new languages, new cultures, new civilizations. And I think we just got to keep digging. And it's like the old adage, you can't quit. You just got to keep looking, 100%. Keep asking those questions.
100%. Do you think we was more advanced technology wise and we got wiped out? That technology was lost? Yeah,
I'm a big fan of the Sumerian legends. Some of the history that comes with that. Some of the theories I've heard proposed, the ancient astronaut theory. I play very heavily on those in my book. I'm not sure I believe all of them, but I'm open-minded enough to want to know more and to want to look into that and maybe just explore it within my own paradigm and use those in my books.
Yeah. Super interesting. Well, Betsey, I am going to be getting the books, that is for sure. And everyone else should go out and get them now as well. Your podcast is awesome. Can you tell the listeners where they can find you?
Sure. My website is authorBetseyKulakowski.com. We'll put that in the show notes because the spelling on that last name is a booger. I'm author Betsey K on Instagram. That's probably the best place to find me. I spend a lot of time on Instagram. I've made some amazing connections in both the paranormal and the writing community. If you're a novice writer, you want to be a writer, you are a writer and you want to connect, I'm here to support you on your journey wherever you are on that. Podcasters, reach out to us. We love to connect. We've done some crossover shows with a few other podcasts, so we're at least happy to give you a shout out or maybe find a way to make something like that work. I'm on TikTok, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter. Find me on my website. You can find all my socials. Ironically, you can also find me on Pinterest because my character Lauren is the queen of campfire cuisine. There is a page for every book, and some of her recipes are also available. So if you like to cook and you'd like to see what Lauren's making around the campfire, go check that out.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, the links will be in the show description. Betsey, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Super interesting stuff. Guys, if you enjoyed the show, share it where you can. That is a great way to support us. We're going to be back very soon for more freaky conversations. In the meantime, stay safe. Betsey, thank you so much. We'll see you soon. Thank you very much. See ya.